When you think about art, what comes to mind? Probably paint, right? Maybe marble. But what if the most important art of our time is being made from something you can't even see? We're about to dive into this pretty bold idea that we're living through a new renaissance, and it's all being powered by data, AI, and our own collective memory.
It's a huge question, I know. But seriously, when you start to look at what's happening where art and technology meet, the parallels are just incredible. It forces you to stop and rethink what art can even be, what it's made of, and maybe what it's really for. Okay, so this comparison, it lays out the whole shift perfectly. Back then, the great masters had paint and marble. Today's pioneers, they're working with data and entire archives of information. Their tools aren't brushes and chisels anymore, they're algorithms and AI. But here's the real kicker. It's not just about some lone human genius anymore. It's about this powerful, new kind of partnership between humans and machines.
All right, so let's dig into that first part, the materials. If today's artists are really painting with data, what does that actually mean? Well, we're talking about them using the raw, invisible information that's all around us as the actual pigment for a totally new kind of art.
Think of it like this. Data pigment is what these artists use to make the unseen seen. It takes this abstract flow of information, stuff we can't normally perceive, and gives it color, shape, and texture. And in doing that, it starts to show us these hidden patterns that are all around us, patterns about our world and about us.
And get this, the sources for this pigment are just mind-blowing. Artists are using everything from wind patterns and ocean currents to digitized city histories, complex scientific data, even the literal, real-time brainwaves of a person thinking. They're tapping into our collective human memories to create something brand new. It's like turning the very pulse of our world into a canvas.
Okay, so we've got the pigment. Now, let's talk about the tools. If data is the paint, then you can think of artificial intelligence as, well, a thinking brush. But, and this is super important, the AI isn't the artist here. It's more like a really powerful, really unique creative partner.
And that's the key right there. The artist isn't sitting there coding every single pixel. No way. Their genius is in teaching the machine an aesthetic, a style, a whole new way of seeing. They basically become the creative director, guiding the AI's gaze.
This whole process, this is what we're calling AI data painting. It's kind of like the artist is a master and the AI is the apprentice. The artist shows it a style. Maybe it's the vibe of Impressionism or the bold lines of abstract art, and then just lets it loose on a massive data set. The AI then paints with all that information using the aesthetic it was taught.
So you've got your pigment, data, you've got your brush, AI. But where do you hang the painting? Yeah, it's not just on a gallery wall. It's way, way bigger than that. The canvas for this new renaissance is often the city itself, on a truly monumental scale.
And putting one of these data sculptures together, it's a huge undertaking. First, you have to gather these massive, massive archives of information. Then, the artist trains the AI on their specific vision. The AI's interpretation, what you could almost call its dream, gets projected onto something huge, like the side of a historic building, pulling us all into this living, breathing memory.
And these canvases are popping up all over the place. We're seeing these incredible projections on iconic buildings. You can literally walk into a room and be completely surrounded by swirling clouds of data. There are even virtual reality spaces where you can fly through these data-driven worlds. It's art you don't just look at, it's art you experience together, out in the open.
This all looks amazing, for sure. But why does it matter? I mean, beyond just looking cool, this art is getting at something really deep. In an age where we have endless information, how do we remember? How do we find any meaning in all that noise?
And this quote, man, it just nails it. So, it's not about making data look pretty. It's about trying to find a whole new language for data itself, a way to translate these overwhelming streams of information into something we can actually feel, and maybe, just maybe, understand ourselves a little better in the process.
Just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about here, some of these projects use over a petabyte of data. That is 1 million gigabytes. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around that much information. Imagine trying to create a single painting using every book, every document in the entire Library of Congress. That's the kind of scale we're on. And that, right there, is the ultimate magic trick. It takes all this cold, abstract stuff, ones and zeros, sensor readings, old dusty records, and it transforms it into a shared emotional experience, something that connects with all of us. This is art literally made from the fabric of our digital lives.
So what this really means is that when you're standing in front of one of these huge data sculptures, you're not just looking at a piece of art, you're actually stepping inside the data. You're experiencing a piece of our collective story, our shared memory, brought to life in a way that just wasn't possible until right now.
Which of course leaves us with one last, really big question. As these artists keep pushing the boundaries and finding new ways to look at our past and our present, we have to ask ourselves, if all this data we're creating is the raw material for our future memories, what stories are we going to choose to tell? What parts of us do we want to remember? And what are we okay with just letting fade away?